This is a rabbit. Just take it in for a second. Kind of a humble creature, right? Delicate, soft, pretty unassuming in almost every way. Well, this is also a rabbit. Also pretty unassuming, but put them side by side, and things start to stand out, don't they? You start to see that, despite the measure of what they are as creatures, there's some pretty striking differences between them. It's like that with rabbits, but it's also like that with... Oh, maybe this is why they didn't want to do the cool rabbit intro thing. It was only these two last night, I swear. I guess rabbits aren't quite such unassuming creatures, are they? Well, looks like I have some stuff to sort out, so let's just get to the story before this can get much worse. I want to tell you about one of the few animal adventure stories that's ever touched me on a personal level. Watership Down by Richard Adams. And before you run off, I promise it's about a whole lot more than just rabbits. Spoiler warning, we're about to tell you all about Watership Down. It is an amazing story and absolutely something you should read firsthand if you can before we spoil it. If you haven't, definitely go listen to the audiobook before you watch the video. You can get it for free thanks to our sponsor Audible. Visit the link in the description or go to audible.com/talefoundry to get started. Did you know that rabbits speak? It's true. It's just not a tongue we can understand. They have words for most everything. To silflay is to graze on grass. An ausla is a clique of powerful rabbits around the warren's chief rabbit. They even have a word for the typical human car, hrududu, which is the sound the car makes as it passes by. And in their language, rabbits also have tales. Many tales, actually. But first among them is the tale of how they became rabbits. It begins back when the world was first being organized by the sun, their god, Lord Frith. He saw that if not kept in check, the rabbit population would overtake the entire world. So he made predators, animals who he gifted with claws and fangs and a hunger for rabbit flesh. But he was not without mercy. When he saw how Elahrera, the prince of the rabbits, struggled to survive in the face of this new threat, digging into the earth, he was impressed and blessed the only part of the prince he could see, his exposed bottom. Elahrera's legs grew strong, his tail flashing white. And Lord Frith said to the prince of the rabbits,
Elahrera, your people cannot rule the world, for I will not have it so. All the world will be your enemy, prince with 1,000 enemies, and whenever they catch you, they will kill you. But first, they must catch you, digger, listener, runner, prince with the swift warning. Be cunning and full of tricks, and your people shall never be destroyed.
And this is how rabbits became rabbits. All rabbits know the tale. That doesn't mean all rabbits remember. Our tale, however, begins long after that, with a very ordinary rabbit warren in a very ordinary place called Sandalford. Hazel and his brother Fiver are, by usual rabbit standards, unimpressive. Certainly not big enough or powerful enough to be part of the Ausla, the clique of rabbits around the chief rabbit. They're what the rabbits call outskirters, frequently brushed aside and mistreated. The smallest of them even get sat on by other rabbits. Not ideal, but typical. A very normal warren. That is until Fiver has a vision. He foresees the coming destruction of the Sandalford warren, and Hazel, trusting his brother, knows immediately that they must flee. They try to warn all the others, but outskirters like them are rarely taken seriously. In the end, only a few rabbits come along. Many of them are small and meek outskirters as well. There's Blackberry, clever and resourceful, and there's Pipkin, the much-bullied runt of the warren, as well as a few others. To everyone's surprise, a few members of the Ausla even decide to go with them, including a big, tough, usually obstinate rabbit named Bigwig. With a little difficulty and a little fighting, the party sets off. We only learn later from a survivor that the warren was gassed and dug up with construction vehicles to develop the land. They just missed a truly horrific fate, and they don't even know what it was yet. For now, all they want to do is find a new home. Fortunately, Fiver has also seen visions of that. There's a hilly place far away where they will create a small paradise for rabbits, a warren unlike any before it, Watership Down. But first, they must get there, and the way is hard for creatures so delicate. They drag themselves through damp hedges and over rough earth, painful against their paws. There are dogs and men with rifles about, and predators, what they call elil, everywhere. The smaller rabbits continuously slow them down. Pipkin gets a thorn in his paw that Hazel has to remove. When they come to a river, the smaller rabbits can't swim across it, and it looks like the rest of the party will have to abandon them, but Hazel decides to stay back and try to help. With his encouragement, Blackberry uses his cunning to find a way to the other bank. The clever little rabbit observes that wood floats, and suggests that they float across on pieces of it. A very strange idea for a rabbit, but it works wonderfully. So it goes, the group running headlong into danger after danger, and Hazel doing his best to make sure no one, not even the smallest of them, gets left behind. Which makes it all the harder. After traveling a long way, they finally find a bit of reprieve in a vast, welcoming warren dug into the roots of a tree. They're allowed inside without question, given all the fresh vegetables they can eat, and for a moment, they think they've found a new place that they can call home. But it's impossible to shake the feeling that something is off about the place. For starters, it's not hidden away the rabbit warrens are supposed to be. It opens out into the hill, exposed to any predator who wants in. It's also strange that the rabbits who live there are so very welcoming when they should be suspicious of the new strangers. The longer they stay, the more mystifying the place becomes. Perhaps the strangest thing of all, these rabbits have no need to forage food, because a man brings scraps and vegetables for them regularly at the foot of the hill. They have no need to fear predators, because he comes and shoots the foxes and stoats with his gun. Something is very clearly wrong here. Pipkin observes that although these rabbits are very healthy, they also seem very sad. Fiver, with his intuition, begins to see the shadows of death all around them. A small rift starts to form within Hazel's party. The traveling has been hard, and this place is comfortable. So what if it's strange? These rabbits have learned some different things, and are better off for it. Hazel and his companions should at least try to stay, shouldn't they? And so they do. And it's a little strange, sure, but it's nice. Until Bigwig nearly dies. One afternoon, while the rabbits are out grazing, they suddenly hear him shriek and find that he's been caught in a snare. In his final breaths, he gasps out a trick he learned as a member of the old Ausla. If you dig out the peg which holds the snare taut, it will spring loose. But this snare's peg is down in a hole, and none of the rabbits can squeeze inside to save him in time, except for little Pipkin. After a lot of wriggling and chewing and some splinters and blood, he manages to get into the hole and set the big rabbit free just in time. Only then does it all come clear to Fiver. The rabbits of this strange warren are being farmed. There are traps everywhere on this hill, deadly wires hidden in the grass that choke the life out of the ones they catch. The sadness they've seen here is the sadness of rabbits who have traded away their rabbithood, their tricks and their cunning, for comfort and safety. When asked about Ella Herrera, the prince of tricks, one of these stock rabbits says that rabbits have no need of tricks.
Rabbits, they say, need dignity, and above all, a willingness to accept their fate.
If some of them go missing now and then, if they live a life of entrapment, well, that is simply the price that they pay to enjoy the comforts they do. Terrified, but determined to find a proper home, Hazel and his companions make for the hills and leave this grim place behind them. Inspired by them and eager to embrace his own rabbithood, one of the strange rabbits who lives there even goes along with them. This time when they set out, it's nothing like leaving Sandalford. The rabbits have all grown to rely on each other, trusting one another's capabilities. With Bigwig's strength, Blackberry's cunning, Fiver's insight, Pipkin's loyalty, and Hazel's leadership, they eventually make it safely to their promised land, Watership Down. And it is beautiful, but there is still much work to be done before it can be a home. Together, using all the strange things they've learned from their journey and all of their unique skills, They dig out their new warren. In the process, they even befriend some other animals, a field mouse who they save from a kestrel, and an injured ghoul named Kihar, who they bring into the warren and nurse back to health. Everything is going about as well as can be expected, until something dawns on them. They're all male rabbits, all bucks, not one doe among them. If they can't find any and convince them to come home with them, their new warren has no future. Once Kihar is back to good health, he helps the rabbits remedy this by flying out to do some scouting. To the north, he finds a farm with some rabbits inside hutches. To the south, a great big warren sure to have plenty of does. They send some of their group to collect information about the other warren. While they're away, perhaps feeling a bit proud of himself and their success finding and establishing a new warren, Hazel decides he wants to get up to some rabbit mischief and forms a little raiding party, himself, Bigwig, Blackberry, and some others, to go free the hutch rabbits on the farm. For a change, when Fiver tells Hazel that he thinks this is a very bad idea, Hazel thanks him, but brushes it aside. The raid is a mess, but most of the rabbits make it back fine and even manage to bring a few does with them. Except for Hazel, whose hubris is rewarded when the farmer shoots him. Thinking of Hazel slipping off into the blackness of death, I'm reminded of another tale that the rabbits tell. Rabbits, you see, have something of a rabbit god of death. Elahreira was always up to mischief. He always got the better of his enemies with his tricks, the best in the world. But there was one occasion on which a king, having grown tired of the trickery, sent his army after the rabbits. They trapped them all in their holes, where they were sure to waste away and die. Seeing no easy trick that could defeat a whole army and knowing that time was not on his side, the Prince of the Rabbits did the one thing he could think of. He paid a visit to the Black Rabbit of Inlay to ask for its help. The Black Rabbit was charged to hold all animals to Frith's decree and to ensure that the predator's might never got the better of the rabbit's cunning. But he would not help Elahreira. Not after multiple bets and wagers in games. Not after Elahreira had gambled away his ears, his tail, his whiskers, most of what made him a rabbit. It was only when the Prince of Rabbits gave up, accepted the limitations of the power of his own cunning, that the Black Rabbit agreed. The armies were instantly overwhelmed by its shadowy Ausla, and the prince's people were once again free. But much time had passed while he was in the Black Rabbit's domain. When he returned, he found that all the rabbits were new rabbits, too young to remember the war. They turned their noses up at the tale of his sacrifice. Exhausted with all he'd done, the prince said aloud, "A rabbit who does not know when a gift has made him safe is poorer than a slug, even though he may think himself otherwise." Lord Frith, the one who first gifted Elahreira with all the things which made him a rabbit, all the things which he eventually gave up to save all rabbits, heard this. And perhaps it was precisely the thing he'd been waiting for the prince to realize, because he responded by gifting Elahreira, Rabbit of Rabbits, Prince of Tricks, with a new tail, new whiskers, and new ears. Only these ones had a touch of starlight scattered in them. Like Elahreira, who visited the land of death and returned, so too does Hazel. Surprisingly, the humans take him in, nurse his wounds, and return him to the foot of the down. It's a sobering moment for him as a leader and as a rabbit. When finally healed, he learns to set his hubris aside. Although proud of himself and his friends, they are still only rabbits, and he is only one rabbit and must learn to accept those limitations. Eventually, battered and ragged from their stay, the scouts return from the warren to the south. It's a huge place called Ifrafa, and it's very unlike any other warren any of them has ever seen before. It's positively militant, rabbits all forced to move like clockwork in a system which regiments their time and activities with extreme strictness and precision. They make their droppings only when and where they're allowed. They eat only when they're allowed. The rabbits who live there are more like prisoners than anything, and the scouts Hazel has sent were imprisoned themselves for a while before escaping home. Of course, just like in Sandalford, the big rabbits are on top in Ifrafa, and at the head of it all is one of the biggest, toughest rabbits anyone's ever heard of, General Woundwort. Hazel knows right away from the treatment of his scouts that there's going to be no negotiating with Woundwort, no peaceful exchange for doughs or unity between the Warrens. He also knows they can't fight Woundwort and his Ausla. The only way to get what they need from these unrabbit-like rabbits is to do the most rabbit thing possible: devise a trick. This time, of course, using the cunning of all his companions rather than just his own mischief, like he did on the farm. Bigwig is big enough and tough enough to earn a place for himself in Ephrafa easily. They see his value, and when he presents himself as an eager member of their warren, they make him an officer to enforce Woundwort's rules. After a good while steeped in the misery of the place, the overcrowding, the brutality of their enforced regimentation, he manages to slip away with a number of the does, but not without drawing some attention. The Ephraffan muscle is hot on their heels as they make their getaway. It's only with the help of Kihar the bird, who swoops down and delays the pursuers with an attack from above, and the help of Blackberry, who puts a lesson from earlier to use and allows them to escape downriver on a crude raft, they make it back to Watership Down alive. The whole thing is shocking to the Ephraffans, who would never have the ingenuity to use something like a raft, or the openness to make a friend like a bird. They all return to their new warren, and for a moment, it seems like that could be the end of it. They're just starting to get comfortable again when a strange visitor arrives. It's a field mouse, returning Hazel's favor from earlier. It's come to tell him that there are a lot of rabbits headed their way. The Ephraffans, coming to lay siege to Watership Down and take back what was stolen from them. Hazel orders the warren's holes filled and tells the other rabbits to hide inside. Meanwhile, ever the brave leader, he goes out to speak with Woundwort, rabbit to rabbit. He gives the general an opportunity to show what kind of leader he truly is, the visionary genius he believes himself to be, or a tyrant with only the courage and cunning of a pirate. Woundwort makes his decision, and the battle begins. But it doesn't go at all how Woundwort predicted. The Sandalford rabbits have learned much on their journey. They are not normal rabbits anymore. With a genuine will to protect his home and a depth of appreciation for the rabbits inside it, not just a will for power like Woundwort has, Bigwig blocks the only entrance to the warren and fights Woundwort back. Meanwhile, Hazel and some of his companions call one last time on their combined rabbit mischief to end the siege. They run down to the farm and chew through the farm dog's rope, leading it in a chase back to the hillside where it scatters the invading force. Hearing the commotion, Woundwort comes back out of the warren and sees the chaos of the scene.
"Come back, you fools!" he shouts at his fleeing men. "Dogs aren't dangerous! Come back and fight!"
These are his last words as he stands up against the dog. It's no match, of course. A rabbit was never meant to fight such foes. At the very least, whether he meant to or not, he bought the Ephraffans some time to get home safely. And finally, there is peace in Watership Down. They've made a place where at last rabbits can be rabbits, and where each rabbit can be itself. By now I hope you're also starting to get the feeling that this story doesn't really have to just be about rabbits. I mean, part of its charm is that it does such a great job looking like a story about rabbits, paying respect to rabbit ecology, giving them language and stories reflective of the way that they really live. But watching rabbits struggle to learn what it means to be rabbits, what it means to be themselves, is really relatable. Because doesn't everyone do that? In the story, these little creatures face pressures from both the world around them and from within. And so do you. People would try to tell you what would make you valuable, how you should be. In Sandalford and most other warrens, only strength and size matter. They can't see what value a pipsqueak outskirter like Fiver could offer, and they're destroyed as a result. In the big sad farmed warren, the rabbits all think dignity is what matters most, and they reject their nature to pursue it, living hollow, cursed, hemmed-in lives. In Ephrafa, the rabbits value a will to power, the ability to use one's strength to control things. But rabbits aren't made for regiments and uniformity. That little dystopian kingdom was always destined to crumble. And you will try to tell yourself what makes you valuable. Tell yourself who or what you want to be. Dictate your actions by who you think you are instead of who you actually are. Bigwig is indeed a mighty rabbit, but he's also just one rabbit. He can't take on everything himself, and he has a lot to gain by relying on the strengths of others. A lesson he learns when Pipkin saves him from the snare. Meanwhile, General Woundwort is the complete opposite. Even in the face of certain death, staring down the dog, he has such a deep conviction of his own strength that he genuinely believes he's in no danger. Deluded right up until his last breath, and he would have taken other rabbits with him if he could have. Even Hazel needs to check himself. He's a good leader, true. He draws strength from his own rabbithood as well as the strengths of each individual rabbit. But when he goes too far with those ideals, trusts himself to run the risky raid on the farm when it's not at all necessary, purely for the sake of rabbit mischief, he nearly dies. Like Bigwig, he has to learn his own limitations the hard way. But you are you. You can always change, but I think it's important to be honest with yourself about what you see when you look in the mirror and to find the value in that. Because there is value. However far you fall from what society tells you matters, however far you fall from your own ideals, there is value unique and inherent to you, whoever you are, wherever you are in your journey through life. And it's your job, like Hazel, like Ella Herrera, to find it. I do think, although it is about rabbits, this book can help you do that. And there's a lot more we couldn't share here. A few other myths about Ella Herrera, a few other episodes of rabbit mischief, and honestly, you're missing out on like 90% of the characters. Definitely go read this one if you haven't. Actually, thanks to our sponsor Audible, you can get the audiobook of Watership Down for free. And it's really good, too. It's narrated by Peter Capaldi, and it's got a whole section of author notes where Richard Adams gets into where he found the inspiration behind it, how he developed the rabbit language, how he got this thing to print, and more. I know you're supposed to talk good about your sponsor, but Audible really is amazing. There are so many gems on this platform. We use it constantly for our research and, honestly, just to relax. You cannot always make time to stop your life and get absorbed in a book, and audiobooks are outrageously expensive. Audible has been an incredible solution for us, allowing us to handle all the things involved in running a channel like this while listening to our favorite stories and plenty of new ones we'd never have heard anywhere else. If you like this video, use this as an opportunity to hear Watership Down for free. Sign up for a free 30-day trial by visiting audible.com/TaleFoundry or by texting the code TaleFoundry to 500-500. Links in the description. And when you're done with Watership Down, that's not the end. There'll still be plenty left to experience. Audible Premium will also give you access to Audible Plus, an absolutely massive collection of select audiobooks, Audible originals, podcasts, and more. Pay less than $15 a month for Premium and Audible Plus together, or if you really just want access to that spacious Audible Plus catalog, you could just choose to pay half as much and use that alone. Whatever's best for you. Again, to get your free Watership Down audiobook and see what drove us to make this entire video, sign up for a free 30-day trial by visiting audible.com/TaleFoundry or by texting the code TaleFoundry to 500-500. Links in the description. Maybe when you're done, you can come back and tell us how we did. That should give me a little time to handle this situation.